Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer. Today I'm not out and about. The weather recently in Sussex, where I live, has been a bit touch and go. It's been a bit grey and grim, and in some of the videos it's been quite blowy, and so it's not just been very conducive to show some of the wonderful landscape heritage and nature of this land, which is what I principally like to do. So instead I thought I would chat about a part of heritage in this video that I think is very much underrated and often forgotten, and that is handicrafts. You may have noticed in recent videos that I've been wearing some new jumpers. A few of you have actually commented and said how lovely they are and how they suit me, and to be honest with you, I'm absolutely enjoying them myself. They're incredibly warm, and as winter comes on I shall be wearing them more and more. The ones I've got that you've seen recently have been made by one of my viewers, Mary Hammond, who initially donated a jumper to me as a very kind gesture, and I loved it so much that I said, where can I get them? And she said, well, I make them. And I said, well, I'd love to buy some. So over the last month or so I have been purchasing them from her, or commissioning her, I don't know how you put it, and she's made them. And this is a lovely teal one that she has made. It came yesterday, and I featured a little bit of it in the Vobes show that I do, and this is its first sort of outing, and they're absolutely wonderful. What I love particularly about these homemade handicraft things is the expertise that comes with it. Not only is it made of 100% wool, as far as I know, but somebody has sat down and done all of this work themselves. And having spoken to Mary, she was absolutely thrilled to make them, loves her knitting, and is very proficient at it. And it got me thinking more and more about the old handicrafts that people used to do, who make bespoke items, and they're not only very proud of them, but they're satisfied. They get a buzz out of creating things with their own hands. And I know that from myself, from in the past making corporate videos for companies and institutions on subjects that really weren't of any interest to me, but I enjoyed the filming part of it. But the overall program or the video was not something I would have made. And since putting together my longer format documentaries of the Bald Explorer a few years ago now, and now these daily videos, the satisfaction, even though they may not be top end, high quality and all of that, the satisfaction from conceiving an idea, going out, producing it, making it, editing it, putting it together, and then having people enjoy it is very immense. And of course, it makes you want to do more and more. This made me think back to some of the old ways, and you will know that I like reading books, and I've got quite a lot of them, and many of them are about the old traditions and old ways of doing things. One of them is a book that I've got by L.T.C. Rolt, famed for his book called Narrowboat. But he also was a great thinker, and he criticised the modern way and was concerned when he wrote a book in 1947 called High Horse, Riderless. I think that's the title. If I've got that wrong, I'll correct it. And he looked at how the modern world changed when we went into the Industrial Revolution, that where we could find that machines could make things quicker, faster, cheaper, and with less expertise, we lost something. And a lot of villages and a lot of professions in towns started to go out of business because they couldn't compete with the machines that could make the items much faster and cheaper and more uniformly. And this was seen at the time, says Rolt, as a great boon, something to be proud of, that we could have these things better made, faster and quicker. But actually, on reflection, and when you think about it, these things are not made of a better quality. Often the material is sourced so that it's made cheaper and cheaper and cheaper all the time. And if you go back to the people who were making things in the villages in their own homes with skills that satisfied them, that they may take longer to make, but there is a part of them, the personality and their reputation in the item they're making. And very often those handcrafted things, like old bits of furniture, are still here with us, whereas a lot of the fast, cheap manufactured stuff has since fallen to bits or couldn't stand up to the test of time because the quality was inferior. So wearing a knitted jumper, for me, reflects that embracing of those older times. And it's not just, knitting and things like that. I have a friend, Fran, from Floating Our Boat, who weaves, and she weaves on her narrow boat and sells bespoke scarves and tapestries and things, excuse me, on Etsy. And she very kindly donated to Julia and I a scarf each, which is absolutely lovely. And I love to wear that when the weather is particularly cold and bleak. And there's something about having a product that's been made by somebody individually and not by somebody who stands by a machine and presses a button or pulls a lever in order to spit out something which is absolutely identical to the next 100,000 that come out of the machine. And that somebody also who enjoys their work and gets that satisfaction that they've created something themselves rather than minding a machine that does all the creating, and actually they don't need that many skills to press the button or pull the lever. Cooking is something that, if you think back, there are lots of people who do enjoy cooking, but there seems to be far more now who will sort of give that process to somebody else because we're all too busy to cook. We're all too busy to learn how to cook. We'll give that duty or that ability to somebody else to do. And often it is a company who will sell these things through the supermarkets. But we all know, do we not, that when you go round to, I don't know, auntie's house or granny's or a friend, and they say, I'm cooking a homemade pie. We all know, oh, homemade pie. We all know that the homemade pie, generally, and of course, I know that there's going to be exceptions where people think they can cook and can't cook, and I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about those people who really know how to cook, and you think, oh, when Aunt Millie makes a pie, it's just brilliant. Better than anything you could buy, better than anything that you could buy that's mass produced. It's not just cooking, of course. I like to bake my own bread now. And I think a lot of people during the lockdowns that we've had this year, although the COVID business has been ghastly and has set people against one another on how they perceive it all, many people have found things to do. And one of those, of course, there was a huge shortage of flour at the beginning because people thought bread was going to be in short supply, and people started to bake their own bread. And I was reading about the benefits of baking your own bread and using wholemeal flour, not so much because of the COVID business, but because I had visited a windmill that was demonstrating how lots of more modern mills will mill the flour and get rid of all the good parts of the wheat germ, whereas a windmill, an old-fashioned windmill, will not sift it quite so severely, and the benefits of eating good quality food. So I then got onto the bandwagon, if you like, of cooking my own or baking my own bread. And I've not looked back. It is a different type of bread. It's less full of air. It's a little bit more dense, the bread I make. But I know what goes into it, and I know what doesn't go into it. And that's a bonus. And there's nothing, well, there's obviously lots of things, but it's such a beautiful thing to open the oven and get that wonderful smell of fresh baked bread and let it cool down a bit, then take the first slice with a knob of butter and eat it. It's so much more joyous than buying something off the shelf, which is hours old or days and full of preservatives and just tastes of nothing. Whereas my bread tastes of something good. So I love that. And people who bake and make cakes and all of that, we know that these old skills, the old woodworking skills, as I mentioned, people who make furniture and chairs, or even fence posts and the bean poles and things in the garden, and people who grow their own vegetable, we all know that satisfaction of being able to do something and being self-sufficient ourselves. And I think that's so important, and we should embrace more of that. And if anything, that this terrible virus has made us sort of concentrate on things that we can do for ourselves, so much the better, I say. So with my jumpers, it sparked this whole thought process about how wonderful it is to look back and go back and, where possible, embrace some of those handcraft things that we once all knew how to do. Not all of them, obviously, but or that we would buy stuff or get stuff from people who made things themselves and were a bit more self-sufficient or independent than just relying on the mass-produced, mass-marketed things where if you're buying it, you don't know where the money's going to and who it's going to or how it's produced, whether with clothes in a sweatshop or something. I know that all the money that I pay for my lovely jumpers that Mary makes goes to Mary, and I know that Mary enjoys making them. And that's what a wonderful thing that is. Anyway, I wanted to share that. I don't know whether that's been of any use or has inspired you to think about the things that you do or to go and support other local handicraft people, but it's what I wanted to say today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow, like and subscribe, and I will be back out in the countryside making my own films, not big commercial stuff that you can get from mainstream media, but my own things. And if you feel a little inclined to make a donation and what have you to keep me going, then that will be great. Until next time, take care, look after yourselves. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.